Scott had turned on him. Aaron hated what he was doing. Ben wanted to cause trouble, and he and Nicky were practically over before they'd started. Maybe he'd be better getting out of Stoke-on-Trent, packing a bag and leaving everything behind. He laughed. Beer talk. There was nowhere for him to go in any case, nor had he enough money. That was the problem he'd been trying to solve, which had got him into this mess. A few minutes from home, he spied a couple walking towards him. They stopped to kiss, walked a few metres, and then kissed again. Kit dropped his eyes as he drew level with them, letting them enjoy their moment. He turned into the cut-through by the school playing fields. The branches of a tree on one side of the path rustled, a warm breeze washing over him. He lifted his face to it, relishing it on his skin. It was so hot. God, he was wasted and couldn't wait to get home now. He stomped ahead, the light in the lamppost thankfully working, showing the way ahead without him having to watch where he was going too much. Kit had lived in Stoke all his life, grown up with its people through work and play. How many times had he walked this path during the years? It must be pushing into the tens of thousands, the area so familiar to him. It had been on his walk home from school. He'd been dropped off there every night when he'd got his first job. Then it was a shortcut from the pub to where he'd lived with Brooke, and now with Nicky. A noise had him turning suddenly, his eyes widening as he tried to focus. "Who's there?" He stared, but could see nothing. A shadow fell across the path. Something hard caught him on his temple, and he went down like a ton of bricks. The back of his head slammed onto the concrete path, taking the full brunt of the force and making the most awful noise. It didn't matter, though. He was dead before he hit the ground. Chapter 2. Sunday. Allie Shenton stretched across to her bedside cabinet, feeling for the ringing phone which had rudely interrupted her sleep. Her head came up from the pillow, and she sighed when she saw it was barely 6:30. "Turn that thing off," her husband Mark muttered, pulling the duvet over his head. The morning sun shone through the edges of the curtains, framing the window in a fiery glow. After a week of glorious weather, it looked like another fine day was on the cards. But it was her work phone that was ringing, which could mean only one thing. If she wasn't busy with a case, Sunday mornings were always spent reading the newspapers, propped up in bed, before they'd cook an oatcake breakfast. After that, it would be time in the garden, or a long walk somewhere. Perhaps shopping, if she hadn't managed to get any food during the week. Allie ordered most of her groceries online, or she or Mark called at the local shop on their way home. But when she wasn't too busy, she loved to browse around the supermarket. "D.I. Shenton?" she said, her voice hoarse after sleep. Then she was wide awake, pulling back the covers and sitting on the edge of the bed. "Okay, I'm on my way." Why on a Sunday?" Mark protested. "Because lots of people lose the plot on Saturday nights." She gathered together some clothes before heading for a shower. "Things escalate a lot in summer too. The sun brings out the best and worst in some. Add in drink and recreational drugs and it's a recipe for disaster over and over." "What's happened this time?" Mark removed the duvet from his head and looked at her. "A man's body has been found with head injuries." "I'll do the shopping then." She turned to him with a smile, but his eyes were closed. Since they'd got over their rough patch, the last few months had been incredible. They were firing on all cylinders as a couple once more, going through the rounds of interviews and training required to become foster parents. They still had a few weeks to go before a decision could be made. Even so, Mark had brought champagne home one evening in anticipation. He'd wanted to keep it chilling in the fridge, but Allie had insisted it should stay in the garage until they had...